The first rays of sunlight spread across the island as waves crashed gently against the rocky shore, but the peaceful morning was quickly interrupted when everyone was ordered to gather at the central dock. Nobody knew why, and the whispers among the team grew louder with every passing second. Ethan arrived late as usual and immediately noticed Arya standing near the front with her arms crossed and an expression that clearly said she had no interest in talking to him. The moment their eyes met, she rolled her eyes and looked away. Ethan smirked. "Starting the day by pretending I don't exist?" he teased. "I'm pretending you don't matter," Arya replied without hesitation. A few teammates laughed, making Ethan shake his head. Before either of them could continue arguing, their leader, Marcus, stepped forward and announced that an abandoned lighthouse on the northern side of the island had revealed a hidden underground passage after last night's storm. Someone needed to inspect it before sunset, and to everyone's amusement, Marcus assigned Ethan and Arya to work together. Both protested at the same time, insisting they would rather work with anyone else, but Marcus ignored them, saying that if they could learn to cooperate, they would become the strongest team on the island. Neither of them looked convinced. Hours later they walked through the dense forest in complete silence until Arya finally broke it. "You're walking too fast." Ethan didn't even turn around. "Maybe because I want to finish this mission today. Or maybe you're trying to leave me behind." Ethan sighed dramatically. "Do you always assume the worst? Only when you're involved." He laughed quietly. "One day we'll have a normal conversation without arguing." Arya smiled despite herself. "That'll happen the day this island starts floating." Their unexpected laughter faded as they noticed fresh footprints leading toward the lighthouse. Ethan crouched down to examine them. 2 people. One heavier than the other. Arya looked surprised. "I didn't know you actually paid attention to details. You don't know a lot of things about me." They exchanged a brief glance before entering the dark tunnel beneath the lighthouse. Dust floated through the air while the sound of dripping water echoed from somewhere deep inside. Every step felt heavier than the last. Suddenly a loud crash echoed behind them. Arya instinctively stepped back, slipped on the damp stone floor, and lost her balance. Before she could fall into the narrow pit beside her, Ethan grabbed her wrist with both hands and pulled her toward him. For a brief moment neither of them spoke. Their eyes locked, their breathing slowed, and everything around them seemed to disappear. Arya quietly whispered, "Thank you." Ethan smiled awkwardly and let go, pretending the moment hadn't affected him even though his racing heartbeat told a different story. They continued walking until they reached an enormous iron door covered with strange symbols that neither of them recognized. "This doesn't look like an ordinary storage tunnel," Arya said softly. Ethan ran his fingers across the ancient markings before answering, "Whatever is hidden behind this door, someone wanted it to stay buried." They pushed together until the heavy door slowly opened with a deafening metallic groan. A cold gust of air rushed past them, carrying the faint sound of footsteps somewhere in the darkness ahead. They exchanged nervous glances, silently agreeing to move forward together. Neither of them realized that crossing that doorway would uncover secrets buried for decades, force them to trust each other despite all their arguments, attract dangerous enemies who had been searching for the same hidden truth, and slowly transform their endless rivalry into a bond neither of them was ready to admit, because sometimes the strongest love begins with the loudest arguments, the deepest misunderstandings, and the one person you swear you'll never care about until the moment you realize you would risk everything to keep them safe. The chilling silence inside the underground chamber lasted only a few seconds before another distant sound echoed through the darkness, making Ethan and Arya instinctively reach for their flashlights. The narrow beam of light revealed a long stone corridor lined with broken statues, faded murals, and symbols carved into the walls, each one hinting that this forgotten place had once been far more important than anyone on the island had imagined. "Someone has been here recently," Ethan whispered after noticing fresh boot prints pressed into the thick layer of dust. Arya knelt beside them and frowned. "These aren't ours." Before either of them could investigate further, a metallic clang echoed from deeper inside the tunnel. They immediately turned toward the sound, but by the time they reached the next chamber, whoever had made the noise had disappeared. In the center of the room stood an enormous circular mechanism engraved with ancient markings. Half of it was covered in rust while the other half looked strangely untouched, as if someone had cleaned it only days earlier. Ethan carefully brushed away the dust, revealing a hidden inscription beneath the surface. "This wasn't built to protect treasure," he murmured. "It was built to hide something." Arya looked around nervously. "Or someone." The temperature suddenly dropped, and a cold breeze swept through the chamber despite there being no visible exit. For the first time since entering the tunnel, neither of them joked nor argued. They both felt the same uneasy sensation that someone was silently watching them. Just then, a loose stone shifted beneath Arya's foot, triggering a loud click. The floor trembled, and several massive stone blocks crashed down behind them, sealing the passage they had used to enter. Dust filled the air as both of them coughed and stepped back. "Great," Arya muttered, trying to hide her panic. "We're trapped." Ethan examined the fallen rocks before forcing a confident smile. "Then we'll find another way out." She folded her arms. "You always act like everything will be fine." He looked directly at her. "Because if one of us starts panicking, the other one has to stay calm." His answer caught her off guard. Before she could respond, another sound echoed through the darkness. This time it was unmistakably footsteps. Slow. Careful. Deliberate. Both of them switched off their flashlights and hid behind one of the broken pillars. A shadow appeared at the far end of the chamber. The mysterious figure paused for a moment, scanning the room before disappearing through another corridor. Ethan waited until the footsteps faded away before whispering, "Whoever that was, they knew this place." Arya nodded. And they definitely weren't expecting company. Curious, they followed the same path and eventually reached a hidden archive filled with old maps, journals, and sealed wooden chests. Most of the documents had been damaged by moisture, but one leather-bound journal remained perfectly preserved. Arya carefully opened it while Ethan kept watch. The first few pages contained sketches of the island, secret tunnels beneath the cliffs, and symbols identical to the ones carved throughout the underground ruins. Then she stopped turning the pages. A detailed drawing of two explorers stood in the center of the next page, accompanied by a handwritten note that read, "Only those who trust each other completely will uncover the final chamber." Ethan laughed softly. "Sounds like whoever wrote this never met us." Arya couldn't help smiling. "Maybe that's exactly why we're here." As they searched the room, Ethan accidentally pressed a loose brick hidden inside the wall. A deep rumble shook the chamber, and another concealed doorway slowly opened. Beyond it stretched a narrow staircase leading downward into complete darkness. "Looks like we found the real entrance," Ethan said. Arya hesitated for only a second before stepping beside him. "If we're doing this," she replied, "we're doing it together." Side by side they descended into the unknown, completely unaware that someone hidden in the shadows was quietly watching every step they took, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves and turn their dangerous mission into a fight that would test not only their courage but also the growing connection neither of them was ready to admit had already begun changing both of their lives forever. As Ethan and Arya descended the endless stone staircase, the air became colder with every step, and the silence around them grew almost unbearable. Their flashlight beams barely reached the walls, revealing centuries-old carvings that told the story of explorers who had vanished while searching for the island's greatest secret. Neither of them spoke for several minutes until Arya finally broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder why we're always the ones sent into situations like this?" Ethan smiled without looking back. "Because everyone else is smart enough to say no." She laughed quietly before catching herself, surprised that she had started enjoying his company. At the bottom of the staircase, they entered a massive underground chamber illuminated by faint blue crystals embedded in the walls. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by shallow water so still that it reflected the ceiling like a mirror. It was breathtaking, but something about the place felt unsettling. Ethan noticed footprints leading toward the platform. "We're not alone," he whispered. They cautiously moved forward until they discovered an old metal compass lying on the ground. Arya picked it up and turned it over. A single letter, V, was engraved on the back. "Whoever dropped this wanted to come back for it," she said. Before Ethan could answer, a sharp noise echoed through the chamber. Both of them immediately hid behind a broken stone pillar. Moments later, three masked strangers entered from another tunnel carrying equipment and maps. Their leader pointed toward the platform and confidently declared, "The entrance has to be here. Search every corner." Ethan exchanged a worried glance with Arya. If these people found them, escaping would be nearly impossible. While the strangers spread across the chamber, Ethan quietly gestured toward a narrow passage on the opposite side. They began moving carefully, avoiding every loose stone they could see. Just as they were about to reach the exit, Arya accidentally brushed against a rusted chain hanging from the ceiling. The loud metallic sound echoed throughout the chamber. Every masked stranger stopped at once. "Someone's here," one of them shouted. Ethan grabbed Arya's hand without thinking, and together they sprinted through the narrow passage as footsteps thundered behind them. The chase carried them through twisting tunnels, collapsing bridges, and ancient corridors until they reached a dead end. There was nowhere left to run. Ethan quickly examined the wall before noticing a small circular indentation that matched the compass Arya had found. "Give it to me," he said. She handed him the compass, and he placed it inside the opening. With a deep rumble, the wall slowly slid aside just seconds before the strangers reached them. Ethan pulled Arya inside, and the hidden door sealed shut behind them, leaving their pursuers trapped outside. Both of them leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. For a few moments, neither could say a word. Finally, Arya looked at Ethan and smiled. You know, if you hadn't been here, I probably wouldn't have made it. Ethan shrugged, trying to hide how relieved he felt. Don't get used to me saving you. She crossed her arms playfully. Who says you saved me? Maybe I was protecting you. He laughed. Still arguing? Always. Their conversation was interrupted when the room suddenly lit up. Hundreds of tiny crystal lights illuminated an enormous hidden library filled with ancient books, sealed scrolls, and beautifully crafted maps covering every wall. At the far end of the chamber stood a glass case containing a mysterious silver key resting on a velvet cushion. Attached to it was a handwritten note that simply read, "The key opens more than a door, it reveals the truth." Ethan slowly approached the display while Arya carefully watched the surroundings. Just as his fingers touched the glass, a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Both of them turned in shock. Standing in the entrance was a woman dressed in black, her face calm but unreadable. She looked directly at Ethan before saying, I've been looking for you for a very long time, and everything you believe about your past is a lie. The room fell silent once again as Ethan and Arya realized that the mission they thought was about uncovering an ancient mystery had suddenly become deeply personal, and the answers waiting ahead would change not only the fate of the island but also the future they never imagined they would face together. Ethan stood frozen as the mysterious woman stepped closer, her footsteps echoing across the silent chamber. Arya instinctively moved in front of him, refusing to let a complete stranger approach without explaining herself. The woman stopped a few feet away and calmly removed the hood covering her face. She appeared neither frightened nor aggressive, but there was something unsettling about the confidence in her eyes. Who are you? Arya demanded. The woman ignored the question and continued staring at Ethan. You've spent your entire life believing one story, she said quietly. But the people you trusted most never told you the truth. Ethan frowned. I don't know you. No, she replied. But I knew your parents long before you were born. The words hit him like a wave. For years he had accepted the official story that his parents had disappeared during an expedition at sea, yet something in the woman's voice made that explanation suddenly feel incomplete. Arya noticed the hesitation on Ethan's face and gently whispered, Don't believe everything she says. The woman smiled faintly. That's exactly what they trained you to say. Before either of them could respond, the chamber shook violently. Somewhere above them, another hidden mechanism had been activated. Dust rained from the ceiling as distant explosions echoed through the underground tunnels. They're here, the woman muttered. We don't have much time. Ethan looked at her suspiciously. Who? She pointed toward the entrance. The people chasing you aren't treasure hunters. They're searching for something much more valuable, and if they reach this chamber first, the entire island will pay the price. As if on cue, loud footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. The masked group had found another way inside. Their leader ordered everyone to spread out while flashlights swept across the ancient library. The woman quickly pressed a hidden symbol on one of the bookshelves, revealing a narrow escape passage. If you want answers, come with me, she said before disappearing into the darkness. Ethan hesitated for only a second. Arya looked at him, silently asking whether they should trust a complete stranger. We don't have many choices, Ethan admitted. They followed her just moments before the masked intruders stormed into the chamber. The secret passage twisted through a maze of narrow tunnels until they emerged onto a cliff overlooking the ocean. Moonlight reflected across the water while powerful waves crashed against the rocks below. For the first time since entering the ruins, they could breathe freely. The woman finally introduced herself. My name is Evelyn. I was part of the expedition your parents led many years ago. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Then tell me what really happened. Evelyn took a deep breath. Your parents didn't disappear because of an accident. They discovered something hidden beneath this island, something powerful enough to start a war if it fell into the wrong hands. To protect it, they vanished willingly and erased every trace of their mission. Ethan struggled to process her words. If that's true, why tell me now? Evelyn looked toward the horizon. Because the people hunting you have finally found the last clue, and you're the only person who can stop them. Arya remained silent, carefully observing Evelyn's every movement. Something still didn't feel right. Just as Ethan was about to ask another question, Arya noticed a faint red light blinking beneath Evelyn's sleeve. Her expression changed instantly. Ethan, move, she shouted. A split second later, a deafening explosion shattered the edge of the cliff. Rocks flew in every direction as the ground collapsed beneath their feet. Ethan grabbed Arya's hand at the last possible moment, but Evelyn disappeared into the cloud of smoke. As the dust slowly settled, the cliff had split in two, the mysterious woman was nowhere to be seen, and far below, hidden among the crashing waves, a dark submarine silently surfaced from beneath the ocean, proving that everything they had uncovered so far was only the beginning of a far greater conspiracy than either of them had ever imagined.